Hi everybody, Anna here. Hello. So my last video, I had sat down and just, vented. I'm trying to get my chair comfy. I had just vented about things about the church that I couldn't take anymore. And I couldn't keep quiet. I have family still in the church. Most of my family is still in the church. And my husband, I'm sure, is sick of hearing it. And I just had to let it out. So now I'm putting this out here because I'm going to talk about my Mormon temple experiences, because I've been in the temple dozens of times. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the temple. I used to live in Idaho near a temple, literally 20 minutes from my house. And so I had been there so many times. I was married in the temple. And talk about the temple experience, because so many people want to know, and you can't get it from a Mormon, from an active participating Mormon, because you're not supposed to talk about it. And here's the thing. The reason why you're not supposed to talk about it is because if everybody knew exactly what went on in the temple, everyone would just laugh. It'd be the laughing stock. And practicing Mormons who haven't gone through the temple yet would stop trying to reach for that goal because they realize how ridiculous it is, and it's not worth the effort. So the only reason why it's secretive is not because it's like sacred covenants they teach you or secret doctrine that only practicing Mormons can know. It's actually just because it would lose its status as this great and amazing and glorifying experience and this life-changing, life-affirming practice. And, excuse me, this is a valid question, by the way. What am I doing out of bed? Drinking my tea. Last time it was wine. I watered it down to green tea today. So still breaking the Mormon rules, just not so bad. Anyways, so I wanted to talk about that. So what are Mormon temples? If you don't know, I'm sure you already do, but Mormon temples are these big, beautiful, gorgeous buildings, always white, sometimes off-white, or like a light gray, but white-ish. Churches spent billions of dollars building all these temples. They're big, beautiful buildings, gorgeous, and all over the world. And they're places where, in the end, basically what you're doing is you're just practicing ordinances for the dead. After your first time through, everything is for the dead. So yeah, why? Anyways. So the first time I went through the temple was the day before I got married in the temple. So I didn't really have time to process it. So I went to the temple, and the first thing they do is what they call an initiatory. So an initiatory is where you go in, you strip naked, and you're given this white robe to put on. And you go through a series of 3 rooms. And the first room, they talk to you about going to the tabernacle or the temple and getting anointed with water, getting washed and cleansed. So they take water and they dip it and they wipe it across your forehead. So it's symbolic. You're not really dunked in water or have water poured all over you. It's just a little bit of water they wipe on your forehead. Then you go to the next room, and then they anoint and bless you, and they take a drop of oil and put it on top of your head. And then another woman comes into this little cubicle, and they basically put their hands on your head and they bless you. Basically, it's like a health blessing. Talk about strength in your body, and blah, blah, blah. And then they take you into this next little cubicle and they talk about the promises you make to always wear the garments and how it protects you from the destroyer. And then they give you a new name. And I hated my new name. And I'm going to tell you my new name. And if you understood, and some of you may, you understood the taboo of me saying my name, like you will understand what a big deal it is. The name they gave me was Phoebe, which I hate that name. Like, I was like, is this God humbling me? I hate that name. I hate how it's spelled. I hate the sound. Like, oh, really? And then come to find out from actual temple workers who worked in the temple, what they do is they give the temple workers a name that day that they give to everybody who goes through. Yeah, so it wasn't even special to me. But it's a name that God is supposed to know you by, and it's between you and God only. So that's what I'm saying, like it's sacred. Only person who knew my name was my husband, which I'm like, why him? Why can't I choose? But my parents didn't know. Nobody else knew my name. And so anyways, you get your name and then you go into the endowment. So they separate the men on one side and the women on the other. And you basically watch these videos about the creation according to the Bible and the book of Abraham. And oh boy, do they take liberties. Like they take one verse out of the book of Abraham and create a whole entire 10-minute segment. Or they'll take 5-6 verses. You know, on the first day, God created earth, and then the light, and the water, and the land, and the plants, and then the animals. And they make this huge, long video. And it's very hokey. It's like 80s, 90s kind of style. Hokey, boring, stupid. And then they stop the video intermittently, and you have to add things to your temple clothes. They have like an apron, a little that looks like leaves. They have a robe that goes across one shoulder and a sash, and then you have to switch them, and all these really weird, like ritualistic things. And you make promises. You put your hand up to the right and your right hand up to the cross, whatever. I don't know. And you make all these promises and covenants, I should say, actually, not promises, because a covenant is a promise between you and God. Promises, and there are all these promises that are really just benign. The only promise in the temple that you make that I don't like, and I think can be, no, it is potentially harmful because I've seen the harm it can do within my own family. And that is that you're going to obey your husband as he obeys God. But at the same time, they used to not say that. It used to just be obey your husband. And then they added in later, obey your husband as he follows God. And I'm like, well, that's still really vague and wishy-washy, because what if he thinks he's following God? And what if he tells you he is and you're brainwashed enough that you believe it? Anyways, that's the only promise that you make there that really is not good. Because why can't the guy make a promise to obey his wife as she obeys God? Like, what's so wrong with women that they can't give their husbands direction? I'm not even a feminist. Like, I will never label myself as a feminist. I think that feminism in this day has taken a really toxic turn. And if you're feminist, you have to believe certain things. And I'm just not that way. I don't believe. But anyways, whole nother story. And so then at the end of all these videos and promises, you do secret handshakes of where you squeeze certain parts of the other person's hand that you're holding, and they're in between the knuckles and over the knuckles, and then you have a sign and tokens. And at the end, you go into 3 different rooms while you do this progression. And then at the end, you come up to the veil. So in other words, like the veil, the doorway to heaven, basically. And it's this big white curtain, and it has holes in it. And you stick your hand through, and you do these handshakes and tokens and signs to this person on the other side of the veil, and they ask you questions. You have to answer them, and you have to give your secret name. So the first time you go through, you do it with your husband, and you tell your husband the secret name. He never goes through with you and tells you his name, though. Like, I don't like how patriarchal the church is. It's stupid. Anyways, so then you go through the veil and you go into the celestial room. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's supposed to represent the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. So it's white. It's got gold frame paintings in there, crystals on the walls, this massive crystal chandelier. Each temple's a little different, but they all have this massive crystal chandelier. Couches to sit on and chairs to sit so you can meditate. Although they probably wouldn't say that word, but pray. And you can be in there as long as you want. You can sit there and whisper with your friends or family that you've come with, or be alone. And that is essentially the most common practice done in the temple, is this endowment session. And so the first time you go through for yourself, and then every subsequent time you go through, you either go through a dead relative or someone you've gotten through your genealogy, or you can take a temple name. And you're doing it, essentially you're doing these ordinances for them so that they can receive these blessings, which I'm like, why is God not powerful enough? Like, if you were alive on the earth when there were no temples, or the church wasn't restored, why can't God give you these blessings? And why can't you bypass all the handshakes and tokens and oil drips on your head to go to the highest degree of heaven? Like, why are we limiting his power? Like, why does the Mormon church limit his power so much? Like, this, whatever. So that's the main thing that goes on in the temple. The other things you can do, there's baptisms for the dead. And you never do that for yourself. You don't get baptized in the temple for yourself. It's in a church or anywhere, honestly, as long as you have the priesthood holders there to do it for you. So you can do baptisms for the dead, and it's the same thing as the endowment sessions. All these other people who have died and didn't get the privilege of being baptized. There's also weddings and sealings performed. So you can go through for your own wedding, which I did, and then there's sealings, which you can seal husbands and wives together by proxy for the dead in the temple. I've done all of them. I started when I was 12 with baptisms for the dead. So when you turn 12, you're allowed to start doing baptisms for the dead in the temple. And that's the only ordinance you can do. That's the only section of the temple you can go into. And yes, you have to have a temple recommend. And that's the only thing you can do. And then get the gift of the Holy Ghost confirmations as well. And it's beautiful. Oh, it's gorgeous. And that's it. That's all you can do in the temple. All that money spent to go do this dead people work for a God that supposedly doesn't have the power to bypass this human work done and bring these people to heaven. I'm like, okay, but let's look at this logically for a second. There's only so far you can go back in genealogy. There's only so far you can go back. And also, what if you make a mistake? What if you get someone's name wrong? Because if God's not powerful to bypass those rules, wouldn't he not be powerful enough to be like, well, I'm sorry, they got your name wrong. Because what if they really meant that person over there? Like, What about all those millions and millions and billions of people who've lived on the earth that never got this ordinance, but were genuinely good people? Are they just screwed? Like, do they never get to be in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, no matter how good they were, because they didn't get baptized for the dead? Or somebody on this side didn't go through an endowment session for them and they didn't get their secret name? Yeah, that's my thoughts too. Because before I had my eyes opened, I would talk to other Mormons about this, and I'd be like, well, what about all those other people? And they'd be like, well, God has a way. God will figure it out. And I'm like, okay, but why can't he figure out for the other people? And if he could, why would he inspire the leadership of the church to spend billions of its members' dollars building these temples if in the end it is actually kind of moot? Why isn't that money put back into its members? Why isn't it to build shelters for homeless people, homeless members even, to put clothes on the bodies of people who don't have it, or food in their mouths? Like, some of the church's money goes to that, which I think is amazing and it's great. But all this money, like, like, if God can figure a way for all those people who can't have ordinance work done for them in the temple because their genealogy just simply doesn't exist, they didn't get into some census and you can't find their genealogy, and they're not screwed because God can figure out a way. Why can God figure out a way for them? Like, you see my conundrum with the temples? Okay, and also, in the end, that's just me venting. But I think, in the end, the reason why the church keeps all this secretive, because yes, it's true, you're not supposed to talk about this. I'm going to hell. You're not supposed to talk about this. You're supposed to keep it a secret. And that's what you're doing. Like, why are we supposed to keep that a secret? And the reason is, I believe, I could be wrong, I believe by keeping this sacred and secret and not talked about among church members and with the world in general, is because it gives the temple more importance than it actually has. It gives the temple this amazing status way up here that members and potential members and investigating members want to achieve. They're like, I need to go to the temple so I can find out these secrets and learn these things and do this work and get blessings. It keeps the temple talked about. It keeps it at a high status. It's the gold standard. And so I believe that's the reason why. So that people don't question why the church is spending so much money on this stuff, because they don't know what's going on. And then when you do know what's going on, you're considered to be part of this amazing secret club. So that's why I believe temples are given the status that they are, is because it's so secretive, and that's why it's so secretive, is so it has that status. That's my belief. I could be wrong. And I don't know if church leaders are really aware of this. It's just like a culture thing where you just do it. You're told, you do it, you follow blindly. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Yes and no, because members are going to keep going and ex-Mormons are going to keep saying what I'm saying, and it's not really going to change. So there has been things circulating around saying, I've heard ex-Mormons and anti-Mormons talk about how in the church, in the temple, there's naked rituals. I haven't seen that. It didn't happen for me. I'm pretty darn sure, like 1000% sure, it's not practiced at all. Was it practiced once upon a time? Probably. A very brainwashed, committed Mormon will do many, many things. I could see it happening, but I don't know. I can't tell you because they don't talk about it. The other thing, in the temple, supposedly you're supposed to make these gestures that basically say you will cut your throat if you reveal the secrets and the promises and the handshakes and the tokens and the signs. That might have been true too. And honestly, I could see that, where it's like, may my blood be spilt if I share these secrets. I could see that. Do they do it now? No, they do not. The church has gotten less crazy over the years, throughout the decades, where, blacks couldn't hold the priesthood. Now they can. If you got married outside the temple, even if you were a faithful Mormon, you couldn't get married in the temple for a year. Now, literally last month, they just changed that policy, saying you can have civil ceremonies and a temple wedding the same day if you wanted to. But you have to follow their rules on the civil ceremony. I'm like, okay. So they're watering things down to appease the members, I think, because the world is so much more open now with the internet and social media, and they're losing members by droves. And that's not just me saying. Like, there have been church leaders saying it's getting bad. People are leaving. And so I think they're trying to make it easier for people to stay. So with the like weird stuff going on in the temple, I don't honestly know. I can't say yes and I can't say no, but I will say that it's not entirely impossible. And with the temple, you're supposed to go to the temple and get all these answers from God and be able to get closer to God more than you could any other place on earth. And they've said where the temple is the closest place to God that you can get on this earth and on this plane, on this terrestrial plane. And not really. I've been there so many times. However, have I ever gone with questions that I prayed about, that I fasted about before? Yes, I have. Have I gotten answers there? No, I have not. And I have gone with a 100% sincere and dedicated heart to get those answers. I would sit in that celestial room and I would pray and I would pray and I would be quiet and I would be still and I would just ask, please, God, tell me. I have this problem. I have this question. I have this situation. I need help. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do this? And I would never get answers. Ever. Now, is the celestial room peaceful? Is the temple peaceful? Yes, it is. It is. It really is. It's a quiet place. It's quiet. It's comfortable. It is peaceful. I can't deny that. But I've also gotten the same amount of peace walking through the mountains, being quiet in a quiet spot outside in nature, going on a hike, hugging my children, like snuggling with my children in bed. I've had more feelings from God of like, good job, Mom. You were a good mom. And these kids have beautiful souls. You know, things like that. My dogs are barking. Jazz! Hush! No. My dogs are being crazy. Sorry about that. Dogs are barking and I have neighbors and I don't really want to bug the neighbors. The church is a peaceful place. It's a beautiful place. There's nothing, the temple. It is a beautiful and peaceful place. I think it's a big waste of money. But I've been there. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Don't believe the hype. There's no amazing secrets you learn. There's no amazing experiences you have. If you have that experience, it's because you're in a right mental state to have that experience. You can have that experience in home. You can have that experience in the woods. You can have that experience in another, a Buddhist temple where you go sit and be quiet and meditate. There's nothing special. They want you to think it's special. They hype it up. They make it all secretive so it seems special, so that you will put your money into the church to build more. And that's it. Those are my experiences in the Mormon temple. They're beautiful. They are peaceful. Worth the sacrifices you have to make to get there? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There are some people who will travel hours and hours and hours to get to a temple, to go through it. There are people in parts of the world who will only be able to go through the temple a few times in their lives because they have to save up all their pennies to get there. And they will travel literally days by bus, by car, by train to get there. And it's sad because they missed out on things in life because of all that sacrifice they made. Is there honor in that sacrifice? Yes, it's because it's what they believe. They believe in it, and there is honor in the sacrifice. Is a sacrifice worth it? I don't know. I think you can get the blessings in a much simpler way. Put that money towards a fabulous, gorgeous, amazing family vacation. Get that family time, because you can't take your kids through. You don't get to spend time with your kids. And all through the endowment, you don't get to sit with your spouse. You're separated the entire time until you get to the celestial room, which you don't really get to sit and talk and discuss. You can kind of whisper back and forth, but actual like continual talking is discouraged, and you don't talk out loud. You don't do that. And so it's nothing. Don't believe the hype. And wow, I really wanted to say all that. Like I haven't been able to express my thoughts and my feelings because it's taboo. It's taboo. It's frowned upon. No one in my family would want to listen to. Most of my family's been through the temple. Actually, my whole entire immediate family, my parents, all my siblings have been through the temple. Every single one. All of my ex-in-laws, they've all been through the temple. Now, my new in-laws aren't even Mormon. So for them, it's just something they're not even interested in. So for me, it's just like, I gotta put it out there. And for you struggling ex-Mormons out there, like, if you want to talk, I would love to talk about feelings, talk about experiences, because I sometimes I feel the need to just talk to somebody who's gone through the same thing as I, but ex-Mormons are hard to find. Either they're incredibly bitter, and I understand, and so they don't want to talk about it, or they only want to talk in anger. And I'm kind of in the middle of the road where I'm not incredibly angry, but I do have pent-up emotions, pent-up feelings about it that I just want to spew out and get rid of and deal with it and be over it. But thank you for listening if you listened. Once again, if people watch this or they don't, oh well, it's out there. I said it. I spoke like I was talking to somebody, and I think that is really therapeutic for me and really cathartic. And hope you guys have a wonderful day. Hope you have as much clarity in your life as I've been getting since I've been out of Mormonism. And I think maybe next time I'll talk about what I'm doing now with my life spiritually, like what choices I'm making and how am I trying to spiritually feed myself. And I might be failing sometimes, but I'm trying. So have a wonderful day. Good to talk to you.